What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be having a look at the brand new Armory Perk in Call of Duty Vanguard to see if it's any good and whether or not it's worth using. Now this perk was just added in Season 2, and with this, it's a Tier 1 perk, which is a very competitive tier of perks, and the description states that you can use equipment faster, and your equipment is immune to the Engineer perk and can't be hijacked or viewed through walls. Now that second part is pretty straightforward and it works exactly how you'd expect. If somebody's using Engineer, they won't be able to see your equipment through walls and they have no ability to hack your equipment. So it's more so that first part that I'm interested in, use equipment faster. That's really what's going to be the deciding factor to me as to whether or not this perk is viable or worth using. And the reason I say that is I don't think there's very many people out there using the Engineer perk in this game. It's a very weak perk this time around, and therefore just countering that perk that hardly anyone uses doesn't really seem worthwhile when it comes to at least Tier 1 perks. I'm not going to sacrifice Fortified or Ghost or Dauntless or Cold-Blooded, for instance, just to counteract the Engineer perk. So let's dive into the comparison when it comes to using equipment faster, and I decided to include the on-hand kit here as well. This is an attachment you can use on, I believe, every gun in the game, and this allows you to use equipment faster as well, so I just wanted to see how this compares to Armory. And the first thing I tested was some lethal equipment. First up, I tested the thermite, and it looks like Armory doesn't actually do anything for you here. It takes the exact same amount of time to throw, your gun is unavailable for the exact same amount of time as not using this perk, whereas with the on-hand attachment, this one is clearly working, and it speeds everything up by roughly 15%. Now, I thought this was a little bit strange, so I decided to test another lethal. This is the sticky bomb, and I got the exact same results. Armory is doing nothing as far as throwing this equipment faster. So then I decided to move into tactical equipment. Maybe it doesn't work for lethal equipment and only tacticals. And I tried it with the stun grenade, and I got a very similar result. The Armory and base comparison, they were within about a frame or two of each other. There was a slight difference, but even if there is a difference here, it's negligible. Whereas the on-hand kit is working as expected, and you do throw the concussions faster. And this is where I wanted to try the stim shot, because I feel like the stim shot animation is too slow to really make it super worthwhile in this game, so if there's something to speed that up, then great. And I was very surprised to see that nothing appears to change the animation time with the stim shot. Not the Armory perk, not the on-hand kits, and I also did try a combination of both, and I did get the same result there as well. So that was quite interesting, and so far, Armory seems to be useless when it comes to using equipment. So the next thing I wanted to try is, what about field upgrades? Do you place your field upgrades any faster using Armory? And it turns out, this is where it actually starts coming into play. As you can see here, when it comes to throwing the ammo box down, the Armory perk allows me to do it noticeably faster, whereas on-hand has no effect on this. It only has an effect on throwable equipment, not your field upgrades. And you actually see the exact same story with the field mic. So there we go, the Armory perk has no effect when it comes to throwable equipment in this game, like the description seems to suggest, and instead, it only seems to have an impact on your field upgrades, and it does allow you to place your field upgrades about 25% faster, which is very noticeable. The only problem with that is you're not typically using field upgrades all that often throughout a match, so it's really not looking good for Armory, but there is one last thing that I wanted to check. I was just very curious to see what the interaction would be like if you combined Armory with the on-hand perk, and I got some very strange and interesting results here. It turns out Armory and on-hand actually somehow stack with each other. Even though they do different things when tested individually, when you combine them, they're helping each other out in all areas. So when it comes to throwing regular equipment, for instance, on-hand on its own allows you to throw that equipment about 15% faster, whereas Armory does nothing. But when you combine them, now you throw that equipment about 40% faster, which really doesn't seem to make any sense, but that's how it's working, so if you stack these, you get a ridiculously fast throw time. Then when it comes to field upgrades, it's the same sort of story, where the Armory perk is the only one that will have any effect on this on its own, but when you stack it with on-hand, it allows you to do this even faster, even though on-hand has no impact on that on its own. Now, the one area where this doesn't stack is with the stim shot. I believe I already mentioned this in the video. Even if you're combining both of these together, it has no impact whatsoever on your stim animation. But for everything else, it speeds it up considerably when these are both combined. And this result leads me to believe that the Armory perk isn't actually working as intended currently. I believe this is supposed to be helping with throwing actual equipment on its own, but for some reason it's just not applying properly. It just doesn't work properly. But the moment you combine it with on hand, suddenly that effect starts to take place and it does stack properly with that. Either that, or there's just some strange interaction with how they handle these when they're stacking together. Maybe this is working as intended, and maybe you are meant to combine these together. In either case, I think it's about time I can share my conclusion on this. And I've got to say, if you do plan on using the Armory perk, just make sure you're stacking it with the on-hand kit on your weapon. If you do that, you're going to see some pretty incredible results when it comes to using both throwable equipment as well as field upgrades. Honestly though, even looking at that improvement, and even though that improvement is quite significant, I still don't feel like this is worth sacrificing your tier 1 perk to be getting this sort of a benefit. If Armory were a tier 3 perk, for instance, I think absolutely this would be a very beneficial perk to be using, and I'd probably start using it on some of my class setups. Probably not all of them, but at least some of my class setups. As it is right now, even with this great stacking effect that you get, I don't see myself ever touching the Armory perk in this game, simply because I'm not willing to sacrifice the more powerful tier 1 perks. I would much rather be surviving explosions or staying off the enemy radar or essentially being invisible to enemy kill streaks in the game than to have something that allows me to throw something a little bit faster and also counters a perk that nobody really uses. Which, speaking of that, I think this actually provides some great opportunity to buff the Engineer perk. I honestly feel the Engineer perk should be more powerful than it currently is, and that would encourage more people to be using the Engineer perk, and then that would suddenly make this Armory perk more powerful as well, because the more people that are using Engineer, the more powerful Armory becomes. A couple other things I would love to see done with the Engineer perk is I think equipment should be glowing brighter than it currently does through walls. And second, I think, just like many other Call of Duty games that we've had in the past, if enemies have aerial streaks in the air, they should be showing up on your mini-map when you're using Engineer. This will make it so much easier to locate them when you're trying to shoot them down with launchers, and it will actually make Engineer worthwhile to use. Now, of course, this is just my opinion on the Armory perk and how it interacts with the other perks in the game. I don't see myself ever using this, but I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. What do you think of Armory in Vanguard so far? Do you see yourself ever using this perk, or do you agree with me? Do you think, at least in its current state, it's just not worth sacrificing one of the more powerful tier 1 perks? Just let me know all of those thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.